you realize actually na the whole thing is a partnership. It's not about you, it's about the patient. Parang your partners in para sa health nila. And even as engineers, di ba, we realize na it's a partnership between the engineer and the end user. Eh. We get so obsessed with Iron Man and Marvel na yung engineers yung bida. Pero at the end of the day, it's actually the ordinary people. Eh. And we're using engineering, medicine to help make lives better.
Hi everybody, I'm Rox De Leon and this is episode 13 of A Curious Character. This episode is a conversation with Miguel Aljibe. Migs and I chat about his journey coming from mechanical engineering at UP Diliman to pursuing medicine at UP Manila. I really like this conversation with Migs because of the unique perspective that he has being at the intersection of engineering and medicine. Without further ado, let's get started with this episode. Ayun, so hi Miguel. As I mentioned, no, I'm
Hello.
very interested about your story of how you got into medicine after taking up engineering. So I was wondering if you could tell me a bit about
Mm-mm.
why you studied engineering in the first place as an undergrad, and was med school really
Oo.
part of the plan from the very beginning. So feel free to elaborate, or how, no matter how long the
Yeah,
story
right.
is.
Actually.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Rox. Um, well, sa family namin, we're three siblings. I never planned to be the doctor. It was always yung second. There's the second child, my sister, my younger sister, that was planning to become a doctor. So ako, ever since bata ko, I've always been the science dun between sa tatlong siblings. I've been the science geek. So it was natural for me and my parents to decide na the engineering would be the best fit for me. So among the engineering fields, I chose mechanical engineering because I don't want to go back to electronics. In high school, we had electronics na TLE na livelihood subject, and it was full of bad memories of burned hands, exploding
Talaga.
parts.
Where,
So
where did
parang
you
I
go
thought
for high
myself, I don't
school?
have the grace. Lourdes School, Mandaluyong.
Okay.
We had a subject there, second year, electronics TLE. Tapos, it was just one semester of frustration. So I told myself, I don't have the grace, the grace to be involved in electrical engineering. So I was thinking maybe Mech Eng, everything there is at least in the centimeters yung sizes. So that's why I chose mechanical engineering. But I never really thought of myself going into medicine. I was part of the generation actually na panood ang first Iron Man movie, the first Avengers movie, and I was part of the generation na it would be fun to become a mechanical engineer like Tony Stark. So what eventually happened was I tried joining some of the laboratories in our department. I was interested in robotics, but I really hindi nag-click hindi nag-pan out yung mga applications at stints ko sa mga laboratories namin. Tapos nakita kong parang, I'm not sure, advertisement na nag-open ng biomechanics elective. I was the only, parang at that time, yung professor level sa faculty ng Mekeng. He had a biomechanics PhD from Columbia University. So, the course piqued my interest. So, kinuha ko, I was actually thinking, baka gagawa kami ng robot dolphins kasi I don't know why dolphins yung una kong naisip. Pero yun yung naisip ko, maybe we'll build something cool animal-like robot. Hindi siya naging ganon. It was actually very focused on clinical. Talagang pinush niya kami to look into problems in medicine and in the clinics and come up with solutions for them. I enjoyed that so much na the next year, nagka-elective ulit, yung parang phase 2 of that elective. Kinuha ko yon.
Ooh.
Tapos to the point na pagdating nung final year ko, wala kaming thesis sa Mekeng. We have an undergraduate research project, ME155. Hinanap ko siya kung nag-o-offer siyang ME155. Wala. So I texted him and he was kind enough to open an ME155
Wow.
para magkaroong biomechanics team na undergraduate research project. So we were, hindi lang naman ako, may six kaming sumali doon. So actually, Sir Dr. Public was really instrumental in this decision to go into medicine. Kasi after that, nung pag-graduate ko, we were already talking about getting an MS for me. Parang he was advising me on career options. And there was one time parang I just joked to him na, ganda din sana if I became a doctor. It was just a joke. But he took it seriously. And I remember when he called me once, parang na-plan siya na yung DOST scholarship ko for my MS. And
Ooh.
in-approve na ako ng panel, etc. I was gonna pursue something, research on mga rib devices for rib surgery. He called me, tapos sinabi niya, unahin mo na yung medicine. Medyo na-shock ako dun eh. Medyo na-disappoint ng onte kasi walang stipends. Sabi niya kasi he was talking with other doctors, and the yung hirap ng med school actually is best left if you're slightly younger. Hindi, it's not for someone na kaya pa naman. May mga nakita na ako nakag-offer. Maybe sabi nila it's best if unahin mo yung medical school. And ang sinasabi sa akin ni Dr. Actually a fine line between the clinicians and the engineers. We close ang collaboration, but there's always may territoryo palagi yung bawat isa at the end of the day. And he was saying maybe it would be, let's find out if it would be nice if the engineer making the decisions with the design can draw on some sort of clinical experience.
So it's like a
I
big
didn't
experiment.
understand it.
It's like a big experiment. Like, will you develop that clinical standpoint having that engineering
Yes. Hindi
foundation?
ko na-realize yun. It was only after, when I graduated from med school, mas naintindihan ko yung what he meant.
Okay. So timeline-wise, when was this? Like right out of undergrad, you went to med school?
Yes, parang pagka-graduate ko, I've started the application process for medicine.
Okay. So did you do like a 1-year gap year to take the NMAT, or how did it work?
Parang sabi ko, I entered college na slightly older than my peers. So parang nagmamadali din ako. So I took the earliest NMAT that I could get. So that was when I was gumagawa ng undergraduate research project. May incomplete pa ako sa EEE4 na project. That's when I took the NMAT. It was a very hard test. Except for the math and physics part, everything else, I had no idea what I was answering.
How was that?
Pero,
I'm super curious about that NMAT because so typically, di ba, when people from other background, say psychology or yung nasa health sciences, marami silang friends, magkakasama sila taking it or somehow meron kang karamay. But parang in your case, parang ikaw lang yung engineer. So,
yeah.
How was that? How did you take that situation? How did you manage that? Parang, did you join like an org sa UP na pre-med or something?
No. Parang this decision to go into medicine was a last year decision. Parang 5th year na ako, graduating na ako. That's when I made that decision. Tapos, parang I just took the NMAT. Parang inisip ko, at least the first try, baka that's the exploratory phase. That's the second try ko sa NMAT. That's when I'll get a good grade. Kasi ang process is, your NMAT score will determine which med schools you can go into.
Okay.
UP College of Medicine has one of the highest cutoffs. Parang you have to have an NMAT of 90. Para lang i-consider ka nila. If you don't have an NMAT of 90, they won't consider you at all.
What's that score? 90? Is it 90% or 90th percentile or absolute value na 90%?
Parang I think from what I understand, it's a percentile eh. Percentile score siya eh. So actually medyo naging shock for me when I checked the email. Tapos I got a score of 92. I was actually
Wow.
expecting 70. Um, my I didn't believe the score. I think it was maybe fate or luck. Kaya ko lang nakuha yan. All my other classmates in med school, ang common grade for UP students in the College of Medicine is 99 plus or 98.
But then
So yung mga,
your background is in engineering kasi. Ewan ko. Or
I think that
how did that parang play for or against your taking the NMAT?
well, in terms of taking the NMAT, yes, hindi talagang marami kang hindi na handicaps in biology, pero parang nakakabawi ka in physics and math. And yung great thing kasi about NMAT is that it ranks everyone. So, parang expected na doon, everyone there taking the NMAT is good in biology. Pero, onti lang will be good in physics and math.
Mm,
I don't know.
interesting. I remember I had this conversation with a faculty na MD PhD program. Parang I don't know which student that is and if that student ended up going into UPCM. But he mentioned na there was a time that they were interviewing a student with engineering background. And he was saying na it's very good to have those students daw with engineering. And then parang they asked, why do you want to do medicine? So parang essentially nagkukuwento lang siya na parang iba-iba yung point lang is iba-iba yung reasons ng mga tao to go to med school.
Mm-mm.
Yung na-interview niya na to, he or she, I don't know if it's a he or a she, wanted to go to medicine kasi daw he wants a challenge. Wala, I just remembered because I don't think there are a lot of people from ENG that are being interviewed for med school and for UP Med. It's just amazing. Na parang, wow, yeah, when I just learned about him, like, wow, that's so impressive going to med school and going to UP med school. Like, I know a lot of people from CSSP or other colleges na outstanding yung grades but still, you know, didn't get in. So, very impressive.
Mm-mm.
So,
It's, ano
when you,
yan, I consider this a blessing.
yeah, when you finally get into UP or UP Med or getting into the UP Med, did you have to decide between UP and another med school out there?
Parang hindi. I made a decision. Parang in my mind, UP was the only one who's going to tolerate uh, an engineer or non-med talaga background in its roster. So, sabi ko, either I get into UP or maybe if I don't get into UP, then maybe med is not for me talaga.
Mm.
So, kaya medyo shocked ako dun sa NMAT score ko. Sa interview results ko, okay.
So, parang what was your backup plan just in case you didn't get into med school? Was it the MS program?
Yes, either it was the MS or going into industry.
Oh. Do you mind sharing what MS program it is and which school?
Also sa UP, yung
Okay.
under MSME, Mechanical Engineering. Kasi may projects or research na kaming ginawa na parang gusto ko pa ituloy sa MS.
So, finally, when you got into UP Med, how was your parang life there? How did you adjust from engineering to medicine, ACADS-wise and socialization-wise? You know, or engineers are very different from people with, social sciences
Yes.
background.
I mean, coming from Diliman, di ba? The biggest college in UP Diliman, medyo may ano tayo eh. Like, superiority complex. Yes, we're engineering. I thought na ano eh, maybe with discipline, control ko lang Facebook time ko, I will survive med school. Med school was a different beast talaga. And it was a really big adjustment. Kahit lang sa the way you answer and the way you learn, the it's very different. Kasi diba in engineering, we try to not memorize, diba? It's all about understanding first principles and then you just derive, diba? Parang angas kapag sa test, wala kang coding, you just derive it from one or two equations and everything. In medicine, it's the complete opposite. You have to know so many things. At first talaga hindi ko siya naiintindihan. It was just at some point parang rote memorization like the body has this 12 kinds of nerves, there are this n number of bones, you have to memorize it all. Just plain memorization. So sobrang hard. It was really a struggle and medyo na natakot din ako for myself kasi I was looking at this test score sa mga blockmates ko, batchmates ko. I was like, okay, falling behind. Pero ang maganda kasi sa UP is UP College of Medicine, they really focus on each student. Parang they don't want anyone failing eh. So, yeah, I took a lot of removals. Pero eventually, unti-unti kong nagets na how you should study. Kasi parang when we went into PGH, when we became clerks and interns, so we were handling patients na, dun ko mas na-appreciate eh. Because yung number one lesson parang I think na tinuturo ng college sa amin is how to sift through a lot of information and find out what's important. Kasi when you look at the patient, when you physically examine the patient, ang daming noise eh. Yung patient mismo magkikwento siya kung ano nung vices niya. Is it important? Is it important sa diagnosis mo? Ang dami palaging mga red herrings eh that you'll think, could this be cancer? Could this be TB? Best you have to eliminate it. Detective work talaga.
Yeah. Could you talk a bit about the med school curriculum just so, because I don't have an idea parang ano ba yung with nangyari sa 4 years of med school?
Usually ang basic setup is parang 3 to 4 years of medical school plus 1 year of internship. Tapos usually ang setup niyan is sa first year you study what's normal, the second year you study what's abnormal, so diseases na yon. Sa third year medyo meron ng integration with the clinics. Sa fourth year mas pinapapasok na kayo, pinapahawak na kayo ng patient. And then sa fifth year, intern na kayo, ano na talaga, full on the job training. Ang difference ng UP from other medical schools is yung tinatawag nilang OSI, yung Organ System Integration. Basically, instead of dividing the lessons into, you have an anatomy subject, you have a physiology subject. By anatomy, you study the body parts, the names of those parts. Sa UP, medyo ginumble-jumble niya at minik. So you study it in terms of systems of organs. So parang for example, 2 entire weeks, you're just gonna study everything that's in the head. Tapos sabay-sabay na yung lectures on the head's anatomy, on the head's physiology, on the medicines that you can give. Sabay-sabay na yun. So from a traditional perspective, actually, medyo siya. Kasi, and lalo na kung wala kang medical background or biology background, medyo shocking siya eh. Kasi ano na eh, tight integrated na lahat, mas lateral thinking na yung pinagpupul sa'yo, yung hinihingi sa'yo. Pero once we became interns and clerks, doon na namin na-realize yung value ng ganitong type of education. Kasi when you see a patient, when you take on a case, hindi siya delineated eh. The patient's not gonna tell you na, my problem is purely anatomical na. No, it's going to be mixed. And hindi nga din magsasabi yung patient na, my problem is purely in the GI tract, in the stomach. More often than not, one organ is affecting another organ and you have to treat them both.
Parang there are really so many things happening parang in the background other than what the parang aside from what the patients are telling you, no? Compared to engineering, I don't know, parang if you could talk about your key takeaways about parang what you learned, ano yung na-open yung eyes mo about after having this perspective and then medicine. Parang how did your way of approaching problems change? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like as engineers, we tend to think of solutions right away.
Yep,
Well,
yep.
this would be cool to do this technology and such and such. And then you develop that, make a prototype, and then when you go to the intended users, as sinabi mo, when you were doing the um, proposal, apparently that's not what they need. So, di ba? Could you talk
Yeah.
about that?
We ano we have engineers have the vice of ano, 'di ba, of being obsessed sometimes with the specifications and
Yeah.
the features na if we're gonna material. Pero parang sa PGH, UP Medicine taught me na ano at the end of the day kasi it's the end users ang bida. Even as a doctor, kahit anong bigay mong rationalization, no matter how smart yung pag-diagnosis mo at sobrang radical at novel example or cool ng treatment plan mo, at the end of the day, yung patient yung magsasabi like, do I want this? So parang what use is ang dami mong in-effort intellectually, tapos hindi din maiintindihan, hindi din tatanggapin ng pasyente. So it becomes you realize actually na the whole thing is a partnership. It's not about you, it's about the patient. Parang your partners in para sa health nila. And even as engineers, 'di ba? We realize na it's a partnership between the engineer and the end user eh. 'Di ba?
Yeah.
It's we get so obsessed with Iron Man and Marvel na yung engineers yung bida. Pero at the end of the day, it's actually the ordinary people eh. And we're using engineering, medicine to help make lives better.
Yeah, I love that. Love that what you said about Don. Kasi I feel like, when I went back to engineering, so when I was working at UP Manila, um, it's a different environment, conversation wise, like talking to faculty with clinical background. Parang the faculty really understands what the problem is, and I always have great conversation. Not that I'm not having those conversations in engineering. What I'm saying is when I went back to Eng, parang it becomes more difficult to talk to these people again because you're used to this kind of parang language. You have different wavelengths already, and then it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's just interesting to observe when you observe those differences in culture. Even when I started, because I'm very vocal about biomed and I think my students or people in engineering kind of see that already, that other students would approach me, ask for insights, ganyan. And then sometimes I just ask, okay, why don't we have a conversation about what you're interested in, what do you want to work for your thesis and such. And what I notice is um, engineers still tend to think more about the solution right away and how high tech your
Yes.
solution is, and less about
Yes.
the impact of this technology.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get involved with UPC Ball?
UPC Bala actually. Actually, I have another mentor to thank for that eh. Kasi in med school, all 160 students were divided into parang small blocks. Tapos they pair us with a consultant professor. Dalawa na para magiging parents mo for your entire journey in med school. So we were
Ah,
paired with Dr. Hazel Reyes. She's a rheumatologist and kinuha na din niya yung husband niya maging ano niya, co-mentor namin, si Dr. JP Reyes, a neurologist. So they've been very hands-on actually. Sila yung our second parents inside med school. Tapos she knows about my background. Tapos eventually na-discuss namin yung predicament ko na what will happen to me after I graduate. I was thinking actually going into orthopedics na residency. Pero I've always been although I enjoy ortho, I enjoy the surgery, I enjoy the chance to saw off a leg. Parang may nagnanag pa rin sa akin ano like I still want to do some design and engineering work. So it was Ma'am Hazel actually who linked me up with the CIBOL program kasi she eventually found out that the college was developing this unit and parang perfect timing lang nung COVID at nagkakaroon the college CBOL was parang the main program of CBOL was put on hold, tapos ni-reorient yung whole unit to tackle COVID eh. So that's how I got in. Parang sinama nila ako sa isang team. And eventually parang tuloy-tuloy na. We're still, the project we started with CBOL last June, tinatapos na namin ngayon. Tapos they've already invited me to stay on and help the organization. For me, actually, it's been a great honor, actually.
Is it the PIPR project of Dr. Sam, the one you're working
Yes,
on?
Dr. Samuel Grossman, yes. The
Okay.
respirator project.
Wow. Yeah, I think CBOL is very promising. When I also learned about it because of the pandemic, and I feel like it's one of the greatest things that happened in my 2020. You know, getting to know all these doctors, and they're so down to earth, and you just know that they're so willing to help you and parang work hand in hand with engineering. And yeah, it's a great opportunity. And when you think of, and you mentioned earlier how you were
Tama.
interested in, you mentioned how you were interested in orthopedics. Naalala ko lang na since your background is in ME, no, parang there are so many opportunities on doing more research in
Yes.
biomechanics. Because I remember, so I was applying for PhD programs this cycle. Unfortunately, I didn't get in, but I was fortunate enough to get interview invites from some of the best bio program. So I interviewed at Stanford, but I ended up getting rejected after that. Pero one lab that I interviewed for was biomechanics lab. And it's just interesting how many of the PhD students there have ME background. They work on basic science research, but also in translational research part. And, that just helped made me reflect a little bit on what we can do sa Philippines, research-wise and
Yes.
prototyping-wise, yung ando ka na sa level na closer to utilization.
Ang daming pwede itulong ng mechanical engineers ng UP and other universities to help yung ating mga orthopedic surgeons sa kanilang work para sa kanilang mga patients actually. Ortho is actually parang taunted in PGH as the carpenters of medicine eh kasi doktor, dala-dala nila mga martilyo. At so parang it spoke to me kasi parang that's what they also do in meching. We also carry hammers around.
Yeah. Seems like it fits you going to ortho. So,
yes, pero I really want to do design work eh.
So does that mean that you're
I
not
think
gonna
is a good
right. So does that mean you're not gonna pursue residency right away? Tama ba? Right after you graduate, you go to residency?
Hindi na ako muna nag-apply. I'm actually still thinking about it. Although ang very sure ako is I wanna go back to clinical practice actually. Parang divide my time between civil and clinical practice. Right now kasi mas research ginagawa ko eh. I just miss the interacting with patients.
Wow. That's like a best of both worlds. Having to do engineering stuff tapos clinical stuff. This might sound like a rhetorical question or parang very vague question, but how does it feel to be an engineer and the medical doctor?
Parang it doesn't feel anything parang different for me eh. Kasi parang parang I've learned to appreciate and internalize yung both worlds, and I've learned to switch between the two worlds. Kasi it's sa Cebol lang actually nagagawa ko yung integration eh. Pero there are a lot of times in which I'm just jumping between the two and parang na-enjoy ko naman.
So something that I always ask people that I invite to have a chat, to have a Zoom chat with me is, what's your advice for engineers or for engineers who are considering a similar track and would like to get into medicine? 3 pieces of advice.
The advice, okay. I think the most important is parang yung sinasabi din sa amin. Now you have to know your why. Because at some point in med school, the work will kill you. Kasi talaga. I mean, um, at some point, you have to go on duty sa hospital for 24 hours straight. Tapos after that, you still have to take an exam. So parang wala ka talagang tulog at all. 48 hours, 24 hours. So you have to know your why. Why are you doing this? Hindi lang to actually for engineers, but for everyone taking medicine. Kasi you need it to survive the grueling hours in the hospital. You need it to persevere. So you have to, when you go into med school, when you apply for medicine, you have to have a why. Yung why sa akin is, yung I wanted to find out yung clinical, yung integration ng clinical at ng engineering. So that was enough actually to keep me going kahit gaano kagulo yung work sa hospital. Second advice is, you can prepare, pero don't overdo it. Ako ay tried taking up bio classes in Diliman. Parang I had 5 units. Nakaswerte ako nakakuha ng bio 11. It didn't help. Parang in hindsight, it didn't help much when I was already there. Kasi it was a totally new field. It was ibang level talaga yung hinihingi ng concentration, sacrifice sa pag-aaral ng medicine. Pero it's still good to prepare. I'm not sure. Maybe if you have to take up a subject na sa undergrad, maybe mas useful anatomy. Parang in hindsight, baka mas maganda 1 sem, 2 semesters of anatomy. That will really help you. Kasi among the medical anatomy yung talagang physio kasi may logic may understanding pa. So parang pag-eng din yun parang pero anatomy it's just memorization.
If you're taking up anatomy,
tapos
sorry, I just had to ask because I don't know if there's an anatomy course in Diliman. Is there an anatomy course in Diliman, and where can you take
alam
it?
ko
Parang
meron,
wala.
pero I'm not sure. Parang dati meron nung time ko. Pero I'm not sure. So, pero I realized kasi among the different theoretical fields ng medicine, anatomy is one of the hardest for the engineer to get into. So, I think useful siya. Tapos third, I think enjoy the journey. Kasi medicine is a roller coaster ride. Dadating yung araw na you think you know what you're doing, you have a lot of success, then bam, failure can still hit you. You can still lose patients. I've lost patients as well. You have to cry, you have to accept it, and then you just have to move on. Parang you internalize it, you learn from it, and then you move on. That's actually one of the things na napansin kong very different from medicine. How it feels so much that you're responsible for someone's life. Kasi sa eng, alam natin yan at least in a theoretical level kasi we are board certified. We know that if our designs mess up, people can get hurt. Pero iba yung sa medicine na you can see it with your own eyes.
That's true. That's very true. Kasi if you're a medical doctor, you really see everything that's happening. Parang you're very grounded. I think that's the term. You're very grounded. Whereas if you're an engineer, yeah, what you said is true also about engineers being on the theoretical side. And it's very important to know everything, how to solve problems and such. And that's a wonderful parang insight or tip that we should all be looking at. And goes to show also how important yung diversity is in a classroom, for instance. Just seeing or just be getting exposure to how other people think from a different discipline, because in the end that will help us be more innovative if that is the goal, say, if you're an engineer and your goal is to invent new products, invent new technologies that would benefit the Filipino. That is it for this chat. If you like this episode or would like to suggest a future topic, let me know by sending me a quick message. I'm always looking for interesting conversations and hope to share more similar stories in the future. My Twitter handle is at rocksalt, that's ROXSALT. You may also send me an email at rocksalt.acc@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in and see you in the next one.